This meeting is being recorded.
I see a couple other folks popping in, but we are going to go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for joining us today. This is very exciting. This is my first webinar with Laurel Ridge Community College and Workforce Solutions. So thank you for signing up for today. And we have wonderful structure to talk about, wonderful topics to talk about. So we are going to go ahead and get started. A couple things I want to do is just welcome folks back. If you have attended our webinars in the past, and we have some folks on that have attended our webinars, thank you for joining us again. And also welcome to any of the newbies that are joining us now live for the first time. So welcome everybody. My name is Deborah Taylor. I am the Director of Corporate Training here at Laurel Ridge Community College under Workforce Solutions. And I want to go ahead and introduce our guest speakers. So Sherry Bender, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sherry Bender, and I am an owner of Rogue HR Consulting and also Pulse HR Consulting. And I'm also the privileged adjunct instructor with Laurel Ridge for about 7 years, and I work with workforce services as well. And my background is 25 years in HR and training, and recently I have focused in diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as harassment and leadership training. And so my industries range from anything from manufacturing, healthcare, law, government, and pretty much anything since I'm in consulting. So it's been a nice long 7 years of getting experience in a lot of different industries. And so I'm excited to be here and talk with you today about all things training and what's on the horizon.
Thank you, Sherry. And Christy Powers is joining us today. Christy.
Good morning. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Christy Powers. I am the Assistant Vice President of the Winchester Operations Center for Navy Federal Credit Union, where I support about 2,500 employees who call this campus their home base. My background is in contact center leadership for more than 25 years. So early career, mid-career, mentorship is very important to me. And I bring that to Winchester.
Thank you, Christy. And I would be remiss if I didn't call out that Larry Baker is on with us too. Larry is our Laurel Ridge Workforce Solutions salesperson. So hopefully you'll all be following up with Larry whenever we're done talking about what we are discussing today, because it is very exciting as we launch a new program. Tanya Thornhill is joining us. Tanya is part of our Workforce Solutions group, and Tanya is going to be monitoring the chat for any questions. So, and she's also going to be putting information and links to certain information in the chat. So you want to pay attention to the chat. And if you have a question, please feel free. And then we'll make sure that by the end of the webinar today, we will address any of the questions. Okay. So I want to kind of set the stage a little bit, because we do have a really eclectic group of folks joining us today, folks from the VEC, the EDA, from private industry, from nonprofit, from trade industries. So we have a really big mix of folks. This would be great for like a group chat of ideas and brainstorming. So we may reach back out to you guys and say, hey, would you like to be part of something bigger? So watch for that in your email. So from a background perspective, in late August of 2021, Laurel Ridge conducted a comparative survey to early 2020. We all know what happened throughout the pandemic. And we held a webinar. It was called Looking Ahead Together and Beyond. And the outcome was provided through the webinar. And if you signed up for it, you got a copy of the outcome of the report. And you can still do that. And Tanya's going to put that in the chat today. Our focus today is actually on the number 2 business goal that was cited by the survey outcome of the employers. So the employers, over 70 local businesses, some small businesses, some large businesses, some nonprofits, said that and cited that strengthening or improving employee morale and trust was a top goal for them, which actually reflected over a 12% increase from the year prior, okay? The top 3 training requests as an outcome of that report were and centered around people development and people skills, such as teamwork, interpersonal skills, communication skills, and time management, which reflected over 66% of the employers that responded. They said and told us, hey, these are the training, these are the skills that we see in our business that we need to hone in on. So that's what we're going to talk about today, because we have, or launching through this webinar, and in February, and we will get into the detail, a series of courses around power skills. So let's jump in real quick, and I'm going to go to Sherry to ask her question just to open this up. Thinking about your most recent experience and your role as a consultant and the number of businesses that you interact with on a daily basis, can you give us an idea of what you're seeing out there and what employers are asking you for and what you're seeing in the industry?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, and I love this question. And like I said, I'm excited to be here because 25 years of HR and training, and my pinnacle position when I was a practitioner, actually created training in a corporate university. And the reason I kind of catapulted into consulting is because the training portion of that position for a large corporation that had me traveling, 60% of my job got cut. And so that was years, we won't talk about how long ago, but that was years and years ago. And so, when times get tough, organizations look where they can chop the budget. And so training was the first thing to go. And so that was a long time ago, you all. And now we're seeing that pendulum come back, and organizations are realizing that that may have been a mistake, because now everyone's asking for training. In fact, that's how Rogue HR was born, my other brand company, because I was spending so much time doing training. Employees are asking for it, as your survey says. And in fact, last night I was reading an article that was studying how much time we're not spending socializing as individuals. And it's only something like between 2 and 4 hours per week with individuals, us as people. And so it's no wonder that these soft skills are something that is being requested by everyone, because we don't have practice with those. And think about it in your workplaces, how important they are. And so without a doubt, leaders are asking for training. Even the employees themselves are asking for training. And so it's a number one topic right now and priority for businesses, employees, and leaders.
Yeah, when I think about that from a Navy Federal perspective, right, I spend a lot of time thinking about workforce development, the skills of our future workforce and our community. Sherry, and I reflect on what you just said about people asking for so much training. And I'll just mention 2 roles that we have here. We have data scientist positions that are open here on campus. We have contact center positions that are open on campus, right? Those data scientists have to be able to tell people all about the data that they just discovered. There is data coming at us from all kinds of places, and they have these big minds to understand it all, but they have to be able to articulate that to others. When I think about contact center folks, I think about the fact that all the easy calls now are automated. And so when I look at the National Governors Association recent report, it's called the State Guide for Building the Future Workforce. In 2020, more than a third of job skills required for most jobs in 2016 were already replaced by new tech and automation. Now, only about 5% of occupations are threatened by that with complete obsolescence, but though job elimination is unlikely, having to change what we do to avoid the impacts of that disruption is really super important. It's going to be a dramatic change.
Mm-hmm.
So that causes change, that causes us and business to think differently about how we want to upskill our workforce, right? What tools, what training do they need to be successful in their role? So I'm going to switch just a little bit, because I think we need to talk in perspective of general generational sorry, differences and what that brings as we see the boomers retiring, leaving the workforce, and we have folks coming into the workforce, right? And in some cases, businesses are reaching deep down into the high schools, grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, to prepare students to move into the workforce. So Sherry, can I ask you to give some insight into the generational impact and what you're seeing?
Oh, sure. Well, like I said, my background is heavy in diversity and, inclusion and workplace and how difficult it is right now really to recruit and retain is another key point that we could spend the whole session on. But we won't because we don't have time. But, right now we have 5 generations in the workforce on the cusp of 6, like you said, and, organizations are really trying to get creative in how to, make this as smooth as possible for everyone. And so whether or not we realize that actually is another aspect of diversity with how, we integrate all of these individuals together within the workplace. And so I'll share a quick story. In one of the classes I was actually teaching through Leadership Institute, which is another program that you all have, had a great example that someone shared. They had someone that was training, they were preparing for their retirement, but they were training their replacement who was just entering the workforce after they had completed a certificate program. And it was like a logistics procurement type position. And they were talking about inventory. And the person leaving said, now don't forget, to write this in your calendar that every quarter you have to check the supply of XYZ to make sure you don't have to reorder this. And so the new person thought about it and like the next day or so, they said, I thought about this. Have you ever looked at your inventory system to see if you could set it up so that it automatically checks the inventory and then pings the supplier if it gets to a certain level to order that? And after a long time, and I'm sure other things happened, right? Because these things don't go as smooth because we are talking about change management. They looked into it and it could actually happen. And so they actually used it as a process improvement throughout the whole facility to see if they could use this other ways. But if that would not have been accepted so openly by the person retiring, it could have been a real fireworks situation for that new employee and maybe not been accepted. Maybe that person would have left. But it went swimmingly, I'll say, and, really created some energy around sharing ideas and made that person feel welcome for sharing their idea. And so it can really create some interesting ideas because, in order to avoid extinction for organizations, you want to create those types of environments where people can share their ideas. And so that's just one real quick example, thinking about the technology gap that happens between generations. And I won't, put names to the generations, but some have different stereotypes when we talk about generations and technology and things of that nature. And some are more accepting than others to accept those ideals. And so you can really do your organization some great service when you look under the hoods of, all the programs, all the levels of diversity that you have. How are you welcoming people with their ideas, with their previous experience that they bring, with even their approach to maybe conflict management, so that you can not have the old saying of that's not the way we do things around here, to move your organization forward. And just thinking of that one example of paying it forward and how it could be used in that organization.
I appreciate you sharing that very much. And again, like you just said, it is one example, and there's so many examples that we talk about whenever we get into classrooms and we have a mix or a cohort of businesses in our classrooms that are able to share ideas and be able to learn from each other those ideas that they can take back then to implement at their location, right? But you have to be open. Management has to be open. Leadership has to be open. Supervisors have to be open to that.
For sure.
So Christy, can you give us some insight into how do we convince management? Navy Federal focuses on learning and development and has such a great program in your business. Can you give us some ideas on how to convince management to buy into that and invest in their staff? What does that look like?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. We do have a big learning and development department here. And so we invest heavily for a couple reasons. One, I've heard people say, well, why should I invest this much in training? What if the people leave? And, the response to that is, what if they stay and you haven't developed them, you haven't helped them with their career, and you haven't helped them take it to the next level? When I think about Sherry saying, that this part of this man's job is being eliminated, that's a disruption that we're talking about. And so what skills do you put in place in order to keep moving the business forward? We have an incredible partnership with Laurel Ridge Community College, and we use the Leadership Institute to supplement our own learning, because sometimes people don't want to hear from their own leadership and their own bosses. They need to hear it from someone else. And so we convince management the importance of it by looking at our overall retention of our employees. We think about how do we keep people developing and keep them here at Navy Federal so that they are constantly feeling like they're learning new things and adding new value, which is what our employees are consistently craving and asking for.
Yeah, that made me think of something, just another quote that I've often heard. Christy, you shared, why would we want to train people? What if they leave? A leadership quote similar to that is, train people well enough so that they can leave. But one of the biggest compliments to you as a leader is that they choose not to leave, that they choose to stay and work for you.
So I was reading an article, and this is in give this away in People Geeks newsletter, actually, that is sponsored by Culture Amp. And culture is a big part of an organization. And how do you define culture and what does that look like? But that's also what kind of sets the tone for your workforce. And there's a quote here that says, quiet quitting, right? We've talked to, you hear that term in the industry now. Some people are really tired of it already, but quiet quitting. And on the other side of quiet quitting, there's quiet firing, which is defined when managers fail to provide support and career development to their employees. So we want folks to stay. We want them to be successful. If they take those skills someplace else, then that's just more of a compliment for you. People are going to leave. People are going to come. We know that turnover happens. So we want to make sure that we're investing in folks, right? So let me just put a plug in here for a couple things real quick. If you haven't used Laurel Ridge before, we have developed Leadership Basecamp, was developed as an outcome of the 2020 survey, where businesses in our area were asking for those supervisor skills because they did see folks leaving the workforce and they needed to upskill very quickly employees that were being promoted up. So Leadership Basecamp is really at that supervisor level, new supervisor level, and that's what we teach through Laurel Ridge. If you're interested in Leadership Basecamp, Leadership Institute that Sherry referenced and Christy referenced is the next level up. So how do you level up your supervisors then? What's the next step? What are those skills? And it is an investment. So I was reading an article and I wrote this down because I thought it was important that from a budgeting perspective for 2022, the Association of Training and Development is reporting that organizations are spending an average of $1,270 per person on development, on personal development, on professional development. And it's increasing. It has gone up. The swing of the pandemic, where we opened up and we were talking about training and development investment going away, where Sherry was seeing folks cutting training, it is now going up. So it's on the upswing of that investment. And what's that telling us? That's telling us that we need people, right? We are short-staffed, the unemployment rate, the number of folks that are leaving the workforce. There's all these factors coming into this. So our job through Workforce Solutions, corporate training, to customize that for the businesses and what they need. So we are launching a group of courses called Power Skills. It launches in February, and these skills, power skills, durable skills, soft skills, however you want to refer to them as, address what was asked and responded by the local businesses when we did our last survey. So we're talking about analytical thinking skills, balancing priorities, writing communication, the right way to communicate in written communication. Everybody's texting, everybody's chatting, everybody's emailing. Again, you have to have that, your person come out through that communication. And what has been requested at a high level is managing your emotions in the workplace, or emotional intelligence. How do I diffuse conflict? How do I build relationships? And that is the last class, actually, developing positive relationships at work. How do I develop those positive relationships? How do you develop a team? How do you develop your team as folks are remote working? What does that look like? How can we work on developing those people skills and positive relationships so that we are able to be successful and be able to increase, profit, right? Business is about making money. So your people and investing in your people are part of that. So I want to go to the chat real quick. Tanya, can you tell us if we have any questions that are posted in the chat right now? So the difference between soft skills, durable skills, power skills, they all mean the same thing. Soft skills has been used in the training and development industry for a very, very long time to talk about those innate skills that can be learned. They're not tactical, but they're more personal, right? Personal development. And I want to ask Christy, actually, when someone came back from training from Laurel Ridge, from Leadership Institute, what was the follow-up by Navy Federal? Because training can be looked at as a one-time event. Mm-hmm. So where's the follow-up and whose responsibility is that?
Sure. So our leaders do a few things when they come back to the Leadership Institute. First, I ask them to put together kind of a debrief about their long experience and share that with the Winchester executive leadership team so that our teams understand what it is that they're learning, and their leaders can then hold them accountable. And then we ask them to teach somebody else something that they learned. So, when I think about the takeaways that I hear from most people who go, first of all, not only do they learn from Laurel Ridge, but they learn from all of the other leaders that are in the class also. There's such a diverse population of leaders that are taking this class. So, some of my supervisors may not have had the opportunity to talk to a supervisor at Monoflow or to talk to a supervisor at Wrangler and learn what it is that they're doing a little bit differently. Especially here at Navy Federal, where people have such long careers, it can be really easy to get caught up in only what we know here and what we do here and think that that's the best way, when in fact we can learn from so many other people as well.
Thank you for that. And that is a huge, important piece of success in development and not just training, right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to wrap this up a little bit, because we're going to continue to talk to our regional partners, our regional employers, our agencies that are out there, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. So there may be hey, what's next? Right. So Power Skills, for instance, is open enrollment. You can sign your employees up. You can sign them up for one class, or you can sign them up for all 5 classes, or they can go in and they can sign up themselves. So anyone, quote, off the street can sign up for a class and come here at Laurel Ridge, or we can bring that to you to your place of employment, or we can have a group of your folks come here to Laurel Ridge at any of our locations and do the training here. But again, you could take one class, you could take all 5 classes. If you want to focus your entire team on managing emotions in the workplace, all 5 of them or 10 of them, how many you want to have, can take that all at the same time, and they can follow along. So we want to ask then, what's next in the community? So you maybe, because you did sign up for today's webinar, and I really appreciate everybody being here, reach back out to you and say, okay, what do you see and what is next? What do you need in your business? What do you need? And especially if you are, you're with the EDA, you're with the VEC, you're with an agency that touches multiple employers. It's very important as we collaborate and we are a partner in the success of the businesses around the college. Tell us, and we will work on customizing that for you. So Sherry, final thoughts for the group before we go. We have 5 minutes left. So final thoughts on your end?
You know, I would just say everything is great that we've talked about. And, you know, would encourage any leader, supervisor that may be, you know, participating in the call or hear this after it's recorded, to reflect on the last few years that we've had, because things have definitely shifted. And, you know, we're all different. Employees are different than what we were before. So we need to lead differently. And, you know, if you're thinking about investing in any type of development or leadership for your teams, you know, reflect and see if there's, you know, extra money in the coffers for your personal development, your leadership development, because, you know, that definitely shows support. And, you know, you may find that things have shifted a little bit for yourself as well. So take a look in the mirror and see what, you know, you could benefit from as well to support the efforts of the overall organization.
Sherry, I think what you said there is so important, right? Look in the mirror to see what you may need, because I think the way we've led for years has changed with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's changed with the new generation. No longer do people just want to be trained on how to do their job. They want to be developed and thought of in ways that help them expand their knowledge and take them for years to come.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, don't be too proud to take advantage of that professional development for yourself.
So true.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both for your insights, and thank you to those who put information in the chat or asked questions, and Tanya for monitoring the chat, for spending your time with us today. Really appreciate that. Tanya did email, put the email for corporate training in the chat. So if you're interested in talking to us or more information, and she's doing a poll, so thank you, Tanya, for doing a poll. If you'd like to receive additional information, please let us know, and then just add your contact information in there as we move forward and we develop the next level of leadership and the next level of the workforce. And generational differences, we have talked about that today from a diversity perspective. That is something that we instruct and educate on through some of our corporate training classes. So I want to just sign off. Thank you all for being with us today. My first webinar, so I tripped a little bit, but again, I really appreciate it. And I think this topic is something that for us to be able to grow our local workforce is very important as we move forward. So thank you all as we sign off. And for those that are referring and answering Tanya's poll, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Christy.
Everyone.
Bye.